Good day to you. I like to do a short live cast on where do wars arise. So Field Marshal Montgomery said, wars arise in the minds of men. 2, he said, if you want peace, prepare for war. These are the conclusion of the Second World War. 3, he said, cost of eternal vigilance is the cost of peace. Now this is true for our immunity also. We have a good design of trained innate immunity with T cells watching to give peace in our immune system. What vaccines do is shift it to adaptive immunity with B cells and antibodies. Then already a war is setting. That's in the area of immunity. So I want to show to you that the Einstein's Fourth World War, where he said, I do not know what weapons will be used for World War III, but I know World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. Why did he say that? Because he believed that there would be unprecedented disaster with thermonuclear warfare. But before that begins, I want to suggest to you that HMS Humanity, that is human life, is like a ship, and it has certain guardrails and anchor posts that keeps the whole humankind, all races and nations to move together, because there were these guardrails and anchors cast and set, I would like to think, by God. So what have we been violating? So wars begin in the minds of men. So what are the wars we have already set forth in a way that humanity's existence is threatened? Never in the history of the world this has happened. There's one voice dictating public health. Now, before this, Napoleon, Hitler, before that Alexander, and then Karl Marx, the Das Kapital by Karl Marx, they all tried to get one voice over all the nations. Thankfully, I'll have to say thank God, it didn't happen. Even with the powerful Soviet empire, one voice could not take the whole world. And capitalism is no more benevolent than socialism, probably it's the other way around. Even when America's power was at its height, thankfully, capitalism could not rule the whole world. But public health exigency created by COVID-19 has given a think tank power to give one voice to the whole world. That's what's happening. Whole world is listening to one voice, and dissident voices of scientists, as eminent as Professor Sunetra Gupta of Oxford Epidemiology, or J. Bhattacharya, Professor of Epidemiology, Stanford University, then Yale University epidemiologist Professor Harvey. None of these people are given a voice. So they got together and made the Great Barrington Declaration and a website called Time for Recovery. But they are assailed again and again. Now, Professor Robert Clancy, well-known immunologist from Australia, highly decorated and a pioneer in vaccines, he's positing the possibility that immune reaction will be altered by mRNA vaccines. Similarly, another famous immunologist who has pioneered prion diseases is also saying, wait a minute, the mRNA vaccines will produce not only the spike protein of the virus, but this particular spike protein has so many sequences of the nucleotide that produces prion error. The prion kind of error is found in the nucleotide sequence that produces the spike protein of the COVID-19 virus. My last substantive official post was as head of Department of Pharmacology in a state medical faculty. That's why I spoke so much about hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. But in our day, we also had wide interest in pathology and immunology and so on. So I have posted on my timeline citations and references on the things I say. So this is not hearsay. There's a vast body of scientists, and they have now published a document from South Africa called the United Health Professionals Declaration as to why they think shutdown, lockdown science is completely wrong. So this is not about anti-vax and conspiracy. This is about the alternative view of science by reputed academicians. Only thing, they are nearing 70. So the young Turks who are running the system is 45. They have got together to plow this kind of view of COVID-19, and there are many scientists who oppose it. So getting back to my theme, that the ship of humanity had good guardrails and we have violated them, good anchor, we have violated them. What are they? One, when abortions are more than live births, every abortion is murder. I have made my lectures as part of medical ethics lectures to the faculty I was. I was also a member of the SLM Ethics Committee when the issue came up whether we legalize abortion in Sri Lanka or not. Thankfully, those who responded, not many responded to the questionnaire I had to prepare on behalf of SLM Ethics Committee, but of those who responded, nearly 80% said they don't want abortion to be legalized. Thankfully, in Sri Lanka, abortion is still illegal. However, abortions do occur with the help of legal professionals and medical professionals. So when abortions are more than live births, we are causing war. Two, when marriage is threatened with LGBTQ agenda and the defense of heterosexual marriage is criminalized. So the woke culture cancelling history, cancelling sexuality as God gave, is militant and rampant. So there's a war on. People are warring against the good systems, I would have to say, the Good Shepherd had instituted. Three, when more live together rather than marry in covenant, keeping long-term covenant, and then very easily they divorce, so that in many Western countries, more children live in single-parent homes than in complete homes, which is a tragedy, which is a design tragedy, the way things are going. And four, those children become easy prey to sexual predators. So pedophilia is a rampant problem, which is a war against the lives of children. Then five, the transgenderism. Professor Paul McHughes, the Professor Emeritus, Distinguished Professor of Psychiatry of Johns Hopkins, has written a 482-page document on gay is choice, it's not genetics. And transgenderism, he has completely voiced himself academically why this is oxymoron. However, it continues. So my position is that transgenderism is war against sexuality, against children. Now, high school girls in US is protesting with the change of law with new president of USA that they will not be able to compete in competitive sports at all because transgender males will take their places. So there is war. So my three statements I began with from Field Marshal Montgomery were, eternal vigilance is the cost of peace. Wars begin in the mind of men. And if you want peace, prepare for war. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the second statement, the last statement. If you want peace, prepare for war. But that is how it has gone. So when global dinosaurs, superpowers, are preparing for war like that, now this war is not with nuclear missiles. Whether they will come or not, we'll have to wait and see. This war is a war on the immunity and health systems world over. That's what COVID-19 is about. It's an ingenious methodology. The COVID-19 mRNA, the virus gets into the human system and invades our CD4 T cells, just the way the HIV virus does. So Professor Luc Montagnier, the one who got the Nobel Prize for HIV virus, he's on record that this virus was made in a lab. I don't know which country, because gain-on-function virus research began in US in the CDC under Dr. Fauci when President Obama was president, and they shifted some of that research in 2014 to Wuhan with a $7 million grant, and the work was ongoing even at the beginning of 2020. Now, for reasons best known to the Global Health Organization, they are now coming out saying in August of 2020 they did an investigation in China, and they found that in 2019 December there were 19 variants of CoV2 already present. So when we are told in different countries mutants are popping up, one wonders whether they are actually mutating now or whether they were variants from the beginning. There was a Manchester University study questioning the same thing. So the issue is that if the mutations are changing the configuration of the spike protein, present vaccines will not be effective. That is, if the configuration of the spike protein is changed by the new variants. So that's as far as the mRNA vaccine, and then you'll have to read the literature, you'll have to read the opposing voices, the dissenting voices, what a mRNA vaccine can do. Now, this is not conspiracy, this is not anti-vax, this is not madness, these are reputed scientists who are in the field, who are saying very simple things like it can trigger autoimmune diseases. MBBS student in the third year of medical faculty can understand that, because spike protein we make in our body, antibodies we make in our body, and in time to come the viral spike protein will be made in different cells in our body, because the viral mRNA vectored into our body will be expressing mRNA in our human mRNA, our host mRNA will be expressed in their genes to produce spike protein again, and then we produce antibody again. So what happens when we are attacking proteins made by our body, that's called autoimmune disease. So this is very simple to understand. So anyway, this is the war on the health front that has been launched, and it is on, and it is significant. Look at all the professors, including Oxford, involved in the trials that disqualified hydroxychloroquine. Do a research on them and check what their financial connections are. Let me repeat. Check out the trials that disqualified hydroxychloroquine and check the names of the professors involved in it, and check out what their financial connections are. Then you won't be surprised as to how these decisions were arrived at. Now we are getting back to my list. So I was at the point when more than half the kids are sold to pedophilia or are in malnutrition because of death and by different plagues. It is a war on. Then sixthly, when 99.99% of GDP is consumed by 0.1% of the populace. Now, backtracking a little more, in 1960, 60% of GDP were consumed by 40%, so it was a reasonable balance. By 1990, 90% of world's GDP was consumed by 10% or was manipulated by 10% of rich people. Coming to 1999, 99% was manipulated by 1%, and coming to 2020, it has changed even more drastically. So over the COVID year, the world's 10 richest people increased in their wealth 3.5 trillion. 10 people increased in their wealth 3.5 trillion US dollars. So never in the history of mankind has been this kind of accumulation of wealth in the hands of a few. So you really wonder whether Orwell's farm is now in action, where he predicted this kind of economic leverage by the global oligarchs. Seventhly, when more than 50% of professionals are not benefactors but malefactors. Just consider this, how professional, because we are all the time criticizing politicians. Consider how the corporate and the professional world use their skills to amass wealth and make the client and the beneficiary feel a slave. That's how skills are used. That's in the professional world. Then, seventhly, when viruses and vaccines are becoming a multi-billion-dollar health industry, and of course, different other pharmaceuticals. Here is one that I was personally involved in, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, was defined, and the first scientist who got involved in it, he really dodged all the. He pretended that he did clinical trials and he did primary level clinic examination, which is all later found to be completely false. But a syndrome was created. So now the pharma industry, with willing practitioners, they make diseases to match drugs, often repurposed drugs, which went out of use. So there's no cost for research at all, but you develop a syndrome that can earn by the billions for the pharmaceutical industry. And here's a well-kept secret that I have been tracking for some length of time. In fact, I am published on this on PubMed. Aspirin is the safest, cheapest, effective NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. I have put this off and on my timeline. You can check it out, DR.Lalith J Mendis. That's my full name, plus aspirin, and you will find this. Aspirin is the safest non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, NSAID. That's a fact. But then it has been disqualified, criminalized, and piroxicam and other toxic NSAIDs did the market, and of course, who earned the profit? And who helps the pharma industry to earn the profit? The prescribers. So this is my point about how ill health has become a wellness industry. Eighthly, when food manipulation harms health and causes famine, genetic modulations, and Bill Gates is much into this, artificial engineering, genetic engineering of meats and so on, all in the name of climate change. That's how mad cow disease, spongiform bovine encephalitis came. The corn genome was modified that in storage it will not be attacked by ticks, and they changed the corn genome. And how did they change it? To the corn genome they added the nucleotide sequence, part of an mRNA that will produce a protein that will act as an antibody to ticks who are invading. In due time, when the spongiform bovine encephalitis came out, they began to check the brains, and they found in the cow brains there was a malfolded protein infectious particle. That's how mad cow disease came, and the research was not fully published. It was quickly hidden away. Now I have told you that the spike protein issue is also that experts in the field say that it can produce a similar situation. So this is about food manipulation, the wars we have caused against humanity. 9, when global oligarchs take over more than 50% of nations and their economies. The safeguard Good Shepherd did was gave nations boundaries and gave nations resources, and they gave nations enough resources to look after their own. So in the nation itself, there are people who plunder their populace, and then the global oligarchs come and plunder the nations. So at present, all the nation's resources are being harnessed through different strategies during lockdown, shutdown. COVID economics has really provided a platform for global economics rather than nation economics. So I like to say that the Good Shepherd who designed the nations want every nation to look after itself and do well. 10. when courts work for the oppressor than for the oppressed. 11. When goats overrun most nations and lambs are led to the slaughter. That's what's happening. Any nation where the head of state is for the nation will be singled out for elimination in one way or the other. Yes. That's how the global oligarchs are planning. Pro-people national governments are a danger or are the hindrance to global expansionism. That's already on. So it may be the UNHCR, it may be the global health, it may be the UNICEF, it may be increasing LGBTQ laws and insistence that abortion be legalized as a contraceptive measure. All this breaking up the family, breaking up the nation, breaking up marriage is where the world is leading, so wars in the minds of men. Finally, when consumerism makes food scarce and luxuries abound, and you know in 1960, 70% of the world's economy was about food and beverage, and of course health and medicine. But increasingly, very little of the world's economy is concerned with food. Most of it is concerned with armament, motor industry, cosmetics, perfumes, fashion, IT, toys. That's the stuff, cosmetics, that's the stuff world's GDP is running on. Food is being made scarce, and the famine situation is being aggravated by the COVID-19 situation with food export, food growing, all at risk. So the picture I have painted is, you may think it's bleak, but it is scientific, it is accurate. The decision you have is, in your field, you have been given equipment or skill to be a benefactor. An ultimate benefactor to me is the good shepherd who looks upon a populace as sheep who should be protected. And my skill is mine to do the best they need. My skill is mine also to earn a living for myself. But it cannot be 100,000 more than those whom I serve. So this is the real war. People have become the market, and children are increasingly the market. My specialty, the digital screen, how much the digital screen makes a guinea pig out of children. And their brains are cooked up, they can't think for themselves, they are completely already a dictated generation who will listen to the diktat of the screen, including suicide. Recently also, there were some issues in the city of Colombo with teen suicide. So my appeal is this: consider who begins wars and how much are we contributing when we agree with this pattern of war launched by intelligent people, by science, the way it was practiced in the last 30 years. So people don't get a chance. So my suggestion is, we need a good shepherd to watch over our own motives. And there has to be a solution that the HMS Humanity, the ship, in so many ways, guardrails have been removed. So please consider the option of, let me put it this way, when I was about to enter the Colombo Medical Faculty, I was so gung-ho about the power of science. I had become first in the island in the GC A-level examination. And later I was batched up in the Colombo Medical Faculty every exam. So I was very gung-ho about the scientific process, fully believing struggle for existence and Darwinian evolution. But then I found, as I gained brain, I lost heart. I say this often: if you plot brain and heart on the x-axis and brain on the y-axis, brain comes down, heart comes down as brain grows. That's brain on the x-axis, heart on the y-axis. As brain increases, heart comes down. This is why I had a conviction of change, that as my brain increased, my heart didn't improve. I posit that to you. Consider why a good shepherd has to govern our heart. Your brain brilliance does not mean better hearts. Thank you for listening.